Tesla filed a lawsuit this week in Louisiana to challenge the state's refusal to let the company sell directly to the consumer. Our next guest is the author of the book Power Play, Tesla, Elon Musk, and the Bet of the Century, which is out in paperback this week. Joining us now, Tim Higgins, reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Tim, great to have you with us. What do they do in Louisiana if you want to buy a Tesla right now?
Well, you can order online. You have to go out of state, and that's how you get it. The real issue here for Tesla is that the state has been cracking down on them, trying to service those vehicles in the state. This is a challenge Tesla's had going back to the early days when it decided not to use third-party franchise dealers such as that automakers around the country use. They wanted to sell directly, kind of be like an Apple store. You could go in and deal with the company directly. And this was a key part of Elon Musk's vision for the company.
Right. They were not able to set up galleries. I mean, in Texas, isn't that they agree? There are lawsuits like this before. So how are they resolved? And does that provide a roadmap for what could happen in Louisiana?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, so some states have really strict laws against direct sales. Others do not. So Tesla figured out a patchwork of stores around the country. In places like Texas, they prohibit direct sales. But one of the things that Elon's team was pretty savvy in figuring out early on was they could set up so-called galleries, places where people could come and learn about the car. They might look like a showroom, but you couldn't buy it there. And then customers would be directed online to buy the cars out of state, and that's kind of the model that Tesla has been using around the country. They were figuring out ways to sell in places like Louisiana. Then the state of Louisiana passed legislation to kind of close a loophole to block direct sales. So the state was trying to clamp down on these things because it gets to generations of support for these franchise dealers who go back to early days in the car business where the manufacturer was using that leverage to hurt their businesses. So these rules are kind of dating back generations ago, and Elon Musk is saying, hey, the world has changed. It's time to kind of break up these trusts, if you will, and allow new companies to sell directly to customers to own that experience.
Are there many more states like Louisiana which are trying to fight the Tesla way of doing things at this point?
There's a handful. It's interesting. In Michigan a few years ago, there was a very similar case to this. Ultimately, they were able to resolve it in a settlement that allowed Tesla to continue to service these cars in state, but through kind of an intermediate subsidiary. And that was kind of a fig leaf over this issue, because the challenge for Tesla is they can figure out ways to sell cars to people in these states, but you got to be able to service them. That's very important to keeping those customers long term.
Yeah, there's only so much an over-the-air software update can do when it comes to servicing a car. Tim, if we could switch gears a little bit, I want to get your take on the Twitter lawsuit and where you think Elon Musk stands at this point. It seems like he has sort of given up a little bit on the fake accounts narrative and is sort of switching gears using this whistleblower testimony. What do you think? I mean, you probably know him better than most other journos out there.
Yeah, well, legal experts say it's going to be hard. This whistleblower case is going to be hard, but nevertheless, it's clear that he's looking for a reason to cause some chaos here, right? And ultimately, I think a lot of people are believing that he's trying to get a lower price. And I backed that up by saying just a few weeks ago at the Tesla annual shareholder meeting, his comments about Twitter, about how helpful it could be to his vision for what he sees for creating X.com, his idea of a super app, how that could be at the center of it, suggests he's still in love with that idea of Twitter. And there's a lot of similarities between kind of the way he's talking about Twitter as a product, as being a super user, and the things he wants to do it, and the same way he was in the early days of Tesla, where he was thinking about the product and the way he wanted to make the cars. He was a buyer of luxury vehicles and kind of knew what he wanted in a car. And you really saw that in the development of the Model S, which hit the markets in 2012, and then the Model 3 so many years later, that's really made the company into what it is. So, you can see him wanting to tinker with the product in Twitter, just like in Tesla.